So this week I started to write some original songs, put some chord progressions together, some shape of some things. But I realised we need a better structure of what the show's going to be. I need to figure out what type of songs we need, what energy those songs need, and just kind of make sure that it builds in the right way so it works into James's script, James's book and libretto. So I've got a bit of a rough shape now of what sort of songs, where the songs would go narratively and all that sort of stuff. And obviously this could all change as we develop and get further in, but it's a shape for me to start writing with. So we've obviously got the prologue that we'll keep developing as we go along, but then my idea was to have a solo song for Grace that explores her learning the ropes and her role in the lifestyle that they had, her role in the family, all that sort of stuff. And I think vibe-wise, it's going to be relatively energetic. A big solo song for Grace, essentially. And then I think the next big story beat is going to have to be the family. So a big sort of ensemble number, but, well, if you can call it ensemble, it's only 4 principals, but the 3 family members, so William, Thomasin, Grace, singing together about the lifestyle, the work they do. Physically, we're seeing that. It's a busy group number. We can use it to kind of show Grace's studies, the development of that. Now, I'm a bit torn between going Grace solo, family group number, or family group number, Grace solo, just flow-wise. Starting with a solo number means we get a really strong introduction to the character. Starting with a group number means we get set in the scene and in Longstone earlier. It's just going to be something I keep an eye on because it both feel like they could kind of work. I really like the idea of hitting that solo song early so that we kind of hit the orchestration strong, the vibe, we introduce our main character, the kind of motives and the reason for a lot of the story. But I'll just have to see how it develops, check how it develops as we go along. The end of Act 1, as I said, is going to be the rescue. I think it's going to be a bit of a set piece sort of thing. Musically, it felt a little bit too obvious to do a song, you know. I think it needs to be more a slow build _ drama sort of thing. I want the scene to be a scene and the action to be action rather than sung. So I think we can make good use of the Greek chorus here, singing in a sort of chant way, a bit like a shanty, but with a bit more cinematic drama. It's a bit confusing at the moment, but it's like an underscore that's very slow building, almost to the point where you don't notice that it's there until you want it to. So it's kind of underscoring the scene work and the stuff with William. It builds and builds and builds and builds over, maybe 10 minutes of this scene happening and the interaction with Thomasin and with William and with the survivors and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot to do there. So I think musically, let's stay out of the way, but really be a foundational bed there. So it's almost like the end of Act 1 is seen, but then is a bigger Greek chorus element that's almost recapping everything we've had from them through that act. Essentially, I want it musically to be the storm. So it's brewing, and it's broken, and we're there, and it's big, and it's dramatic, and it's matching the action building on stage. So if that's the end of Act 1, working backwards from that, there needs to be the kind of sighting and the interaction between Thomasin and William and Grace about the fact that he's going to go out and rescue them, and then about the fact that she's going to go with him. I'm not sure about the shape of that yet. It's a good space for a solo song for Thomasin, because there is not a lot of call otherwise. I've got ideas for it to be in the ensemble numbers and things, but in terms of a solo song, this is a good spot because she was essentially left alone. Those two went to go and do the rescue. She knew that that's what they had to do and reluctantly let them go. A song almost like a prayer sort of song. So that could go before we really get into this storm. They've gone to do the rescue and she's left. Again, for the sort of argument that would be before that, I'm still just thinking more underscore. I don't want to have too many things oversung because I think it will just break from the tension and the foreshadowing and that sort of thing. So, a prayer, that makes sense to be sung. The sea shanty-esque kind of repetition stuff from the Greek chorus makes sense to be sung. That sort of thing where I don't want it to just pull people out. So an underscore with a folky kind of bed foundation that's adding tension to just some scene work, essentially. Because I'm in this first stage of kind of getting a concept album together before we go to try and develop for stage, I kind of want this recording to stand on its own narratively so that you can get the story from just these songs alone, just this music. So anything that would be a scene or would be dialogue or would be on stage action, for the recording, I'm going to have William in that narrative device that I'd kind of worked into the prologue. There'll be some bits with underscore that would underscore scenes, but if William almost narrates that for this recording, so that it almost stands like a radio play. That's my idea. I really want it to work on its own, just to get the idea across and get it's a concept album. That's to get the concept across. There's space definitely in this first act for a few more Greek chorus sections. There's lots of stuff to foreshadow, the storm and the wreck and everything. I've kind of been calling this Greek chorus section, as I've been writing, the Longstone Singers, something like that. So it feels like a village choir. Just to give them a name rather than just keep saying Greek chorus or just saying soprano, So the Longstone Singers are those 5 voices, and we've got 4 principal characters, basically. Okay, Act 2. Now, I'll be honest, I'm struggling with Act 2 a little bit. And the thing I'm struggling with really is the flow of energy. Obviously, the story from sort of the end of that Act 1 is quite dark compared to the first half. And so there's been space in Act 1 to have lightness and brightness and warmth, in a way, in the family dynamic and the lifestyle and all that sort of stuff. This act is much trickier. I'm not shying away from the fact it'll be darker, but I would really like to get at least one number in the second act that has that brighter feel, that upbeat feel. I'm just not really sure how that would work or where that's going to go. If I do manage to find anything, it's going to have to kind of be at the start of Act 2, the middle of Act 2, kind of halfway between maybe the rescue and the end. So I'm going to have a think and try and figure out what that can be. So the story beats we need to catch in Act 2 are a duet between Sarah and Grace. We need to highlight that friendship and the fact that we're using their kind of emotional responses to tell us people's perspectives and their support of each other through that. There's a section with William writing a letter to Grace, saying sorry for not being able to support her through the celebrity, the public heralding sort of section. There's plenty of other shows with a character singing while writing a letter, but it's a good device. It could include all the things that's happened to her since the rescue, or happened to the family since the rescue. But it gives us a solo number for William as well, which we haven't got so far. There's the family number in Act 1. There's no true solo number for him so far. And then, sort of whizzing through to the end, there needs to be another solo song for Grace, I think. Ballad sort of thing, because she's unwell. When I've thought about this one, I've kind of heard the Longstone Singers, the Greek chorus element, being this ethereal, spiritual force that they're kind of singing to her, in a sense, and her solo lines converge with theirs towards the end of the song, so that in the writing we're kind of telling the fact that she's moving on. I think it will build, if that does work, it will build nicely into what I've got an idea for next, or last, which would be an epilogue. So kind of mirroring the prologue, bookending the show in a way that creates that circle again for the legacy. A similar vibe, and using some of the other themes from the other songs. So this is probably going to have to go right at the end, writing-wise, and weaving it all together. I think the fact we've got William doing some narration and being narrative in the prologue, even in just this recording stage, is going to work well there as well. To have him talk about her legacy and people's reactions to her death, then on a more general sense, how we can take who she was and what she did and use it to inform how we should live. The duty and the acts of service and all that sort of stuff. So I think there's a shape, at least to get started with. There's a roughly even shape there for character songs. We've got solos and duets and ensemble numbers and chorus numbers and bits of underscore. I still need to figure out that Act 2. I think there's one more song for Act 2. We'll see how it goes.